I don't normally like to talk about movies I didn't like. I usually just like to get on here and talk about movies that I loved. But I have to talk about this movie because I wasn't expecting it, and also I think I might have an understanding of why it didn't work. Let me say first of all that I really like Alex Cox as a director. I think Repo Man's a classic, one of my favorites. Straight to Hell, also great. The one I didn't like, which I saw recently for the first time, was Walker, starring Ed Harris. Now, maybe some of you out there like this movie, and I would love to hear from you as to why you loved it. I'm going to tell you why I didn't like it, and then I also have an idea of why I think it doesn't work. It's hard to know where to begin. I'm going to say the first thing that I think that doesn't work about it is the music. I can't tell sometimes if Alex Cox is trying to be B-movie or trying to be weird and it's just not coming off, or if it's just the way he is and it comes off that way. You know what I mean? Because there were some real moments of overacting, let's just say. I think Ed Harris is a great actor, but there were times here where I didn't think that it worked. There were times where the music, as I said, really did not help at all. In fact, I think it worked against it. And there was a moment where I thought it's kind of interesting because I felt like Alex Cox was doing something unique. For example, there was a scene where Ed Harris was with some other people in a parlor, and someone was playing the piano and someone was playing the violin, and the violin was excruciatingly bad. And I thought that's kind of interesting because he clearly chose it to be bad. Like the person, he probably picked like a very beginner violin player because he wanted it to sound like that. But then things started clashing and it just didn't work, or it just made me think, oh, and I really had to force myself to finish this movie. I just thought it was really bad. I'm just going to get straight to it as to why I think it didn't work. And the reason is because it felt like there was an external factor being projected onto it. Now, maybe Alex Cox is saying something in all of his films that's political. You could probably read into that for Repo Man or Straight to Hell. But this one in particular felt like he was trying to make a political statement. And I'll say that part of it had to do with the plot and part of it had to do with the end. So when the end credits roll, it's about Nicaragua, and like, I don't know if it's a true story or not. It said it was, but I'm not sure. And it had speeches of Ronald Reagan being played. Now, listen, John Carpenter also didn't like Ronald Reagan, and his movies came out pretty fucking good. And Alex Cox's earlier films, I think Straight to Hell is the same year as Walker, so I'm not sure which came out first, but the previous two, let's just say, came out pretty well, and you could probably find messages in there as well. But I don't think if you're going to use an external element like politics, let's just say politics, let's just jump into it here. If you're going to use that and you're going to turn filmmaking or let's say art or whatever into a vehicle to make some sort of a political statement, it never works, I don't think. There might be some cases where it has worked, but if you're that driven to make a political statement, in my opinion, what comes out of it in a big way is a political statement, but never a great work of art. Now, you could find examples that clash with what I'm saying, but in some cases at least, we don't really know what the pie chart is of, what the artist was trying to do, what the artist was trying to say. Sometimes they do shit, and it's after the fact that they say it's about it, for art. Now, for filmmaking, it's a little bit different because you're being told. But I kind of got the sense all the way through it that there's a kooky director that I really like, and I can't tell if he's trying to make some sort of weird anti-colonial thing. And I'm not saying anti-colonial is weird, but just the thing of trying to combine these different fields and ideas into something never works for me. If I get the sense that I'm watching something that should be at a campaign rally, I'm out. I don't want to hear it. This, I think, was that, but it also was so weird that I just didn't think that it worked. So to me, I think that's the reason maybe why it didn't work, that he got so worked up about Reagan and he's so much so that at the end of the credits, he's playing the credits with a speech of Reagan in the background. And by the way, if you're doing that, you're taking the focus off of all the people that worked on the film, which I didn't like. You know people are going to watch Reagan and they're not going to watch the credits. So that to me feels a little bit off. But the fact that you're willing to do that at the end of your movie tells me that you're trying to make some sort of a statement that isn't woven into the artistic idea. It feels like maybe the purpose. That's the difference. So if you have an idea for a movie and you're typing down there saying like, look, Troy, you're an idiot because this movie and that movie and that movie. I'm not saying that there haven't been movies that are good that have all these beautiful things woven into it and they're interesting statements or there's a line or a scene. Of course there's going to be that. What I'm saying is you have a political idea or a beef or some sort of, you're angry about something and you decide to make a movie you decide to use filmmaking as a vehicle for that, then it doesn't work. If that's one of your sole purposes or the sole purpose, I don't think it comes off. And this movie never felt like it had any sort of a gel or it didn't feel like there was a flow to it. I think the music actually didn't help. And I know that he's kind of a strange, interesting, but strange guy who uses all these different things to try and tell a story, which I'm all for, because I think one of the things I admire are people who take big fucking swings. Big swings, you gotta take big ones. I respect that. I think Repo Man was a big swing. I think Straight to Hell was a big swing. And I think Grand Slam for Repo Man and maybe a 2-run homer for Straight to Hell. But for this one, swing and a miss, 3 straight pitches. And I appreciate the big swing, but it didn't work for me. If it worked for you, I would love to hear why. I kind of saw online before I watched this that it was one that people had recommended. I'm not sure why. I'll have to look stuff up, I guess. But it's kind of a story I'm not really... either it wasn't told well or I'm not interested in it or both. But it just felt like I was watching a really weird episode of Dr. Quinn, Medicine Woman or something. Now, I'm not saying a weird episode, right? I'm not saying that it was vanilla or straightforward, mainstream or anything like that. But it felt like it was, some sort of strange attempt on his behalf to say something political and maybe tell something in his own way, have these heartfelt moments. And it just didn't work. And it was maybe the only Ed Harris performance where I thought, oh, this is, he's such a great actor, but there are times where he's just really giving it to the audience, and it just doesn't work, I don't think. But I applaud the effort. So let me know what you think. I would love to know what you think of Walker. If you have other films you might suggest of Alex Cox, but I was on an Alex Cox roll there, and then I hit this one, and then maybe I'm gonna switch to something else, another director. So let me know what you think, and make sure you sign up for Movie Club on Patreon. It's a movie raffle club. You join my Patreon, and every month I pick one name out of a hat, and I will send that person surprise DVDs in the mail. Tangible appreciation for support. I mean, what else could you ask for? You can ask for more things. But really, for the small amount to join the Patreon, I think it's a pretty good gift. And they're good DVDs, by the way. I've already picked them up. So, for this month. So, you want to get on that. And let me know what you think below. So, Walker, one of the very few times I'll talk about a movie I didn't like, Walker.